Most valuable thrift store and garage sale finds. Number 18. Accidental Millionaire. Rick Norsigian had very fond memories of Yosemite National Park when he worked there when he was younger. While at a local garage sale, he picked up 2 boxes of glass plates for $45, showing some older images of the park. Not thinking much of it, the boxes were put away for a further 2 years. When he eventually examined them, he discovered that they were actual negatives of images taken by Ansel Adams, the father of American photography. The images were taken between 1919 and 1930 and were valued at $200 million. Number 17. Lucky Break. That's what Andy Fields got back in 2012. He was browsing through a garage sale in Las Vegas when he came upon a piece of artwork done by a child. Intrigued by the piece, Fields paid $5 for it. The drawing showed Rudy Vallee, who was a well-known singer and performer from the 1930s. The pencil drawing ended up being worth $2.1 million, and the reason for that? It was done by Andy Warhol when he was a kid. Number 16. Find of the century. $3 out of pocket. A New York family took their little Chinese bowl home that they had picked up at a garage sale and left it on a mantelpiece for a very long time. Turns out their $3 investment had quite the return, as it fetched $2.2 million at auction. The little bowl was a 1,000-year-old treasure from the Northern Song dynasty that ruled over China from 960 to 1127. Thank goodness they didn't use the bowl as a dumping ground for keys, bits of Legos, and other pocket finds. Number 15. I want to ride my bicycle. $5 is a real bargain for a bicycle, but it's an even bigger bargain when it turns out to be the bike that used to belong to Floyd Landis, who was accused of doping a few years back. He's also the guy who blew the lid on Lance Armstrong. Anyway, we digress. This bike had blown off the back of a truck in 2008 and ended up at this garage sale, looking a little worse for wear. But it didn't take much for Greg Estes to return it to its former glory. That's the bike, of course, not Landis. Number 14. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. And that saying couldn't be truer as seen in this case. Over in England, a lady bought a fake diamond ring for $10. As a joke, someone suggested she have the ring appraised, which she did for a bit of a laugh. Well, she wasn't laughing after the appraisal because the ring was valued at $500,000. The reason why it wasn't initially thought to be real was that it was set in quite a heavy antique setting, which is the kind of setting you expect to find in costume jewelry. Plus, it was rather dirty and the setting tarnished, so there was no sparkle, leaving everyone in the dark about the true worth of the ring. Number 13. Deal me in. Claire lived in a pretty small apartment in New York City and was quite pleased with a small but pretty table she bought at a garage sale in New Jersey, which cost her just $25. She had the table for years before getting it appraised. To her surprise, it was a Seymour card table made by John Seymour and Sons back in 1794. She sold the little card table for $1 million. Number 12. A stroke of luck. A Vancouver garage sale was what changed the life of an anonymous person who bought a painting along with a watercolor sketch for just $100. The oil painting wasn't big, but it was the artist who painted it that was. Canadian artist Tom Thomson was an influential artist in the early 20th century, and this lucky find was anticipated to bring in $250,000 for its lucky buyer. But at the end of the day, it only received $110,000. Still not shabby considering it was bought for $100. Number 11. Cats out of the bag. A family from Cornwall in England had a garage sale, and they pretty much sold everything, barring this creepy-looking cat. They had no need for it, so they just tossed it into the trash. Someone saw this bronze cat and rescued it from the rubbish and took it on the off chance they could get a bit of cash for it. That throwaway cat was actually an Egyptian artifact from somewhere between 500 and 700 BC and was sold for $100,000. Number 10. Fresh out of luck. This Louisiana woman was most certainly fresh out of luck. Edith Parker was holding a garage sale, selling bits and bobs from a neighbor that had passed away. She lives in a trailer park and didn't have a lot of money. After she sold a certain painting for $2, she discovered that the painting was potentially a Picasso and could be worth millions of dollars. She said she did notice the signature, but her friend said it was a fake. She only learned of the potential value when the woman who bought the painting rocked up at her trailer with a TV crew. It's thought the painting might have been stolen, but the last article about this painting was written in 2009, and to date there hasn't been any confirmation on value, whether it's legit or if it was indeed stolen. Number 9. Name's Bond. James Bond. How to make $120,000 off a $30 investment? Buy a watch that was worn by a former Bond, Sean Connery, and auction it off. The buyer, who wants to remain anonymous, went to a car boot sale where he saw this watch worn in the film Thunderball. He wasn't 100% sure it was legit when he bought it, but for $30, it was worth the risk. When he initially had it valued, they said it would fetch between $40,000 and $70,000. So to have received $120,000 was quite the windfall for this eagle-eyed bargain hunter. Number 8. Oh, this old thing? It was an old LA Lakers basketball poster that was the reason why an appraiser found himself in the garage of Gordon Cosgriff. Cosgriff was doing a big clean out of his garage after he retired when he found the poster. Hoping it was worth a little money, he got the appraiser in. While the appraiser was there, he sifted through some other pieces of random art collecting dust when he spotted something amazing. It was an orange and green painting proudly bearing Jackson Pollock's signature. The painting was legit and was valued at $15 million. Number 7. Just my luck. Tony Marone thought he was the luckiest man alive when he thought he might have come upon millions. He had bought an old box of junk from a garage sale for $5, and when he opened it all up, he came upon some documents. Amongst them was a stock certificate dating back to 1917, showing there were 1,625 shares in Palmer Union Oil Company. He did a bit of digging and discovered that Palmer Union Oil Company eventually merged with Coke, and that the certificate he found would entitle him to a substantial amount of money. In fact, the lawsuit they went ahead with said in the region of $130 million. Unfortunately for Tony, he didn't get his millions, and he ended up having to pay quite a bit in legal fees. Number 6. One for the collection. You have to admit, this is an exceptionally striking piece of jewelry, and no wonder it caught the attention of a Philadelphia woman. She spotted it at a flea market and purchased it right away. 3 years after this purchase, she happened to be at the Philadelphia Art Museum when she noticed very similar jewelry on display. They were all done by Alexander Calder, a well-known American sculptor who passed away in 1976. She had her piece checked out, and it was proven to be real. She sold it at auction for $267,750. Number 5. Beginner's luck. Perhaps this anonymous student had just that, but regardless, she couldn't have been happier with her unexpected windfall. She had bought an old sofa at a flea market in Berlin for $215. Once she had brought the sofa home, she began unfolding it, only to discover a painting tucked away inside. The piece turned out to be done around 1605 and was called Preparation to Escape Egypt. She sold it for just over $27,000. Number 4. From trash to treasure. Literally, in 2013, a man was walking along and happened to pass a trash can. There, he found a violin that someone had just thrown away. He took it and went to have it appraised, and he knew nothing about violins. Well, it truly was this man's lucky day, as the violin was made by Giuseppe Petrozzini, a famous violin maker, and it was worth $50,000. Music to his ears. Number 3. My cup runneth over. Over at this little thrift shop in Sydney, an anonymous person spotted this very unusual looking cup. He paid $4 for it and decided to see if he could find anything out about it. He was amazed to find out that he had a Chinese libation cup from the 17th century made entirely from rhinoceros horn. The cup sold at auction and it fetched $75,000. You have to wonder if the person who tossed it ever watches these types of videos and what their reaction would be if they realized their massive mistake. Number 2. Let's go to the movies. It was in an old projection booth of a remodeled theater in Dallas that this Frankenstein movie poster from 1931 was discovered. The theater was busy undergoing renovations in the early 70s when it was discovered by Steve Wilkin. An online auction was held and it was estimated that the poster would bring in between $100,000 and $200,000, but in the end, it fetched a massive $358,500. We're not actually sure who got to keep the money, but we imagine it was probably split between the person who found it and the theater. What do you think? Number 1. Thank your lucky stars. We only know him as Leroy, and in 2006, Leroy bought a painting for $3 at his local Goodwill store. His daughter thought the painting looked quite unique and suggested they get it appraised. The appraiser said it was probably worth around $20,000 to $30,000, so Leroy decided to sell it. He was astounded when he ended up receiving $190,000 for the painting, which was a piece of Flemish artwork dating back to 1650. We really hope he shared a portion with the Goodwill shop he bought it from.